They arrived in a new country with little more than ambition and a single business idea. A century later, their descendants control an empire that touches your life multiple times every single day. The coffee brand you trust, the cleaning products under your sink, the snacks in your pantry, the personal care items in your bathroom. These aren't just random products. They're threads in a vast commercial tapestry woven by one family across 4 generations. You know the brands intimately. You've used them for years, perhaps decades. You've seen the advertisements, walked past them in countless stores, recommended them to friends. But the family behind them? Their name remains obscure, deliberately kept from the spotlight, even as their reach extends across continents and industries. This is the story of how one family built an empire hiding in plain sight, and why you've never heard of them despite using their products every day. In 1903, a 26-year-old German immigrant named Wilhelm Hartmann stepped off a steamship in New York Harbor carrying 2 leather suitcases and less than $40. He was fleeing economic stagnation in Bavaria, where his father's small soap-making workshop had been crushed by industrial consolidation. Wilhelm had learned the craft at his father's side, understanding the chemistry of fats and lyes, the art of fragrance, and the meticulous standards required for quality. But in the old country, there was no future for a craftsman without capital or connections. America promised something different. Wilhelm settled in Cincinnati, Ohio, a city already known for its soap and candle manufacturers. The choice was strategic. The city's German immigrant community provided a network of familiar language and customs, while its position on the Ohio River offered access to raw materials and distribution networks. For 2 years, Wilhelm worked in other men's factories, saving every cent he could spare. His lodging was a rented room in a boarding house on Vine Street. His meals were bread, sausage, and coffee. In 1905, with $380 in savings and a small loan from a fellow German immigrant, Wilhelm rented a modest workshop on the city's industrial east side. Hartmann & Sons Soap Works opened that spring, though there were no sons yet. Only Wilhelm and his wife Anna, whom he had married the previous year. The name was aspirational, a declaration of intent. The first product was a simple bar of laundry soap, sold door-to-door in German and Irish neighborhoods. The quality was exceptional, the price fair, and Wilhelm's work ethic was relentless. The early years were brutally difficult. Competition from established firms was fierce. Capital was always scarce. Wilhelm mixed batches himself, poured molds by hand, wrapped each bar in simple brown paper stamped with the family name. Anna kept the books and handled sales to neighborhood grocers. By 1908, they employed 3 workers and had expanded their product line to include a gentler soap for personal use, scented with lavender. The breakthrough came in 1910, when Wilhelm secured a contract to supply soap to several local hotels. The volume was modest, but it provided steady revenue and taught him the importance of institutional clients. More importantly, it exposed the Hartmann brand to travelers from across the Midwest. Orders began arriving from retailers in Indianapolis, Louisville, and Columbus. Wilhelm understood something crucial about American commerce. It wasn't enough to make a good product. You had to build relationships, honor commitments, and think beyond the next sale. By 1912, Hartmann & Sons employed 12 people, and it moved to a larger facility. Wilhelm and Anna now had 2 young sons, Friedrich and Otto, who would one day justify the company name. The business generated approximately $18,000 in annual revenue, a comfortable living but hardly a fortune. Wilhelm's ambitions, however, extended far beyond comfort. The family operated on principles that would define the business for generations. Reinvest profits rather than extract them. Maintain absolute quality standards even when cheaper alternatives tempted. Treat employees fairly, and they would be loyal. Think in decades, not quarters. These weren't written rules. They were simply how Wilhelm conducted himself, lessons absorbed by his sons through observation. By 1915, the business had weathered its first economic downturn and emerged stronger. They had survived by maintaining quality while competitors cut corners, by honoring contracts when others defaulted, by building a reputation that transcended price. But the real transformation was yet to come, and it would be driven by a combination of wartime opportunity, strategic vision, and the next generation's willingness to think beyond soap. When Friedrich Hartmann assumed leadership of the family business in 1920, at the age of 28, he inherited more than a successful soap company. He inherited his father's philosophy of patient capital and long-term vision, but he brought something Wilhelm could not have anticipated: a formal business education from the University of Cincinnati and an instinct for the emerging science of brand management. The 1920s brought unprecedented opportunity for consumer goods manufacturers. The war had disrupted old supply chains and bankrupted competitors. American households, flush with post-war prosperity, were eager for modern conveniences. Friedrich saw that the future belonged not to single-product manufacturers, but to diversified consumer goods companies that could leverage distribution networks and brand recognition across multiple categories. His first major move came in 1922, with the acquisition of a struggling Cincinnati toothpaste manufacturer, Bright Smile Chemical Company, for $12,000. The purchase price was modest, but the strategic logic was profound. Toothpaste and soap shared similar distribution channels, retail relationships, and manufacturing expertise. More importantly, both were personal care products purchased repeatedly by the same households. Friedrich understood that controlling multiple products in a consumer's routine meant multiple opportunities to build brand loyalty. The acquisition was structured through a new holding company, Reimann Family Enterprises, established in 1923. This corporate architecture separated ownership from operations, allowing individual brands to maintain their identities while benefiting from centralized purchasing, distribution, and financial management. It was a structure ahead of its time, anticipating the conglomerate model that would dominate American business decades later. By 1925, the combined companies employed 73 people across 2 facilities and generated approximately $240,000 in annual revenue. Friedrich had also expanded geographically, establishing distribution partnerships in Chicago, St. Louis, and Detroit. The Hartmann name remained on the soap, but Bright Smile kept its original branding, a decision that revealed Friedrich's sophisticated understanding of consumer psychology. The elder Wilhelm, now in his late 40s and serving as chairman, watched his son's expansion with a mixture of pride and caution. But the results spoke for themselves. By 1928, Reimann Family Enterprises controlled 4 consumer brands. They were about to enter industries that would touch millions of lives daily. The family's entry into the food and beverage industry began with a calculation, not inspiration. In 1929, Friedrich Hartmann commissioned a market study that revealed something striking. American households were spending increasing portions of their income on packaged foods, yet most brands were regional at best. National distribution networks existed, but few manufacturers had the capital or expertise to exploit them. Friedrich saw an opportunity to leverage Reimann Family Enterprises' existing relationships with grocers and wholesalers. The first acquisition came in 1931, during the depths of the Great Depression, when asset prices were depressed and competitors were desperate. For $85,000, the family purchased Golden Harvest Foods, a Chicago-based manufacturer of canned vegetables and soups. The company was losing money, but it owned a modern canning facility and held contracts with Midwest farming cooperatives. Friedrich recognized that the infrastructure was sound. The problem was management and marketing. Within 18 months, Golden Harvest had been transformed. The family invested in quality improvements, standardized recipes, and redesigned packaging that emphasized freshness and value. They introduced a money-back guarantee, then rare in the canned goods industry. Most importantly, they used Hartmann's distribution network to place Golden Harvest products in stores across the Midwest and eventually the East Coast. By 1935, Golden Harvest controlled approximately 8% of the national canned vegetable market. The company employed over 200 workers at its expanded Chicago facility and a new plant in rural Illinois. Annual revenue had grown to $1.2 million. If you opened a can of corn or green beans in an American kitchen during the late 1930s, there was a significant chance it bore the Golden Harvest label. Though few consumers knew that the friendly farm imagery on the label was owned by a family whose fortune had begun with German soap. The success in canned goods established a pattern that would repeat across industries. Identify undervalued assets in essential consumer categories. Apply rigorous operational discipline. Leverage existing distribution. Let brands maintain their own identities while benefiting from centralized support. With food and personal care secured, the family turned their attention to household products, where their impact would be even more profound. The family's approach to household products followed the same methodical blueprint that had worked in food. Between 1938 and 1945, Hartmann Family Enterprises acquired 7 companies manufacturing cleaning supplies, paper goods, and laundry detergents. Each purchase was carefully calculated to fill gaps in the portfolio while avoiding direct internal competition. The acquisitions included Clean Bright detergents in 1938, Spotless household cleaners in 1940, and Crown Paper products in 1942. Purchase prices ranged from $45,000 to $320,000. Modest sums made possible by the family's patient accumulation of capital and their willingness to acquire during periods of economic uncertainty. While competitors hoarded cash or retrenched, the Hartmanns expanded. The management philosophy remained consistent. Brands operated with significant autonomy, maintaining their own identities and customer relationships. Clean Bright remained Clean Bright. Spotless remained Spotless. But behind the scenes, they shared purchasing power for raw materials, distribution networks, and financial oversight. This allowed smaller brands to compete with national giants while maintaining the local authenticity that customers valued. By 1945, Friedrich's younger brother Otto had joined the company as chief financial officer, bringing rigorous cost accounting and strategic planning. The third generation was also entering the business. Friedrich's eldest son, Wilhelm II, had returned from military service and was being groomed for leadership in the food division. The portfolio now included 14 major brands across personal care, food, and household categories. Combined annual revenue exceeded $8 million. Employment had grown to over 1,400 workers across 9 facilities in 5 states. But these well-known regional brands were only part of the story. The full extent of the family's reach would surprise even industry insiders. Consider your morning routine. The toothpaste you squeeze onto your brush is likely Bright Smile, reformulated dozens of times since 1922, but still bearing that original name. The bar of soap in your shower could be Hartmann's Pure, the same formula Wilhelm developed in his Cincinnati workshop over a century ago. The laundry detergent you used last night, Clean Bright, carries a brand established in 1938. The breakfast cereal in your pantry, the canned soup in your cupboard, the frozen vegetables in your freezer. There's a strong probability that at least one bears a label owned by Hartmann Family Enterprises. The coffee you drink might be Morning Peak, a brand the family acquired in 1952 when they purchased a struggling Seattle roaster for $420,000. Today, Morning Peak controls 11% of the premium ground coffee market in North America. The cream in that coffee could be from Dairy Gold, purchased in 1967 as part of a strategic move into dairy products. The sugar comes from pure cane, acquired in 1971. In your bathroom, the shampoo, conditioner, and body wash lining your shower likely include products from the family's personal care division. Fresh Start Shampoo, launched in 1956. Silk Touch Conditioner, introduced in 1963. Pure Glow Body Wash, developed in 1978. These brands dominate shelf space in grocery stores and drugstores across the developed world, yet few consumers connect them to a single ownership structure. The household cleaning products under your kitchen sink tell the same story. Spotless All-Purpose Cleaner, acquired in 1940, now holds a 14% market share in its category. Gleam Glass Cleaner, purchased in 1958. Refresh Fabric Softener, launched in 1965. Power Clean Dish Soap, introduced in 1973. Each brand operates with its own identity, its own packaging, its own marketing. But each flows revenue to the same private holding company in Cincinnati. The family's reach extends beyond products you use at home. If you stayed in a hotel in the past year, you've likely encountered their institutional brands. Guardian Industrial Cleaning Supplies serve over 40,000 commercial clients worldwide. ProFresh commercial food service products supply restaurants, cafeterias, and catering operations across North America and Europe. These brands operate in the shadows of consumer awareness, but generate billions in annual revenue. The numbers are staggering. Across 6 continents, in 157 countries, Reimann Family Enterprises controls 73 consumer brands and 14 commercial divisions. The combined portfolio generates approximately $112 billion in annual revenue. The company employs 547,000 people at facilities ranging from soap factories to coffee roasting plants to paper mills. Industry analysts estimate the family controls between 8 and 15% market share across 19 different consumer goods categories. Today, fifth-generation members of the Reimann family serve in leadership roles across the enterprise. Elizabeth Hartmann Chen, great-great-granddaughter of Wilhelm, serves as chair of the board at age 47, having joined the company in 2003 after earning an MBA from Stanford. Her cousin, Friedrich Hartmann IV, age 52, serves as Chief Executive Officer of the Food and Beverage Division, overseeing operations that generate approximately $38 billion in annual revenue. A third cousin, Otto Hartmann III, manages the philanthropic foundation established by the family in 1947. Unlike many dynasties that fracture across generations, the Hartmanns have maintained unity through deliberate governance structures. The family trust, established in 1952, ensures that ownership remains consolidated while providing clear mechanisms for succession and decision-making. Approximately 47 family members hold beneficial interests in the trust, but operational control rests with a board of 7, 5 of whom must be direct descendants of Wilhelm and Friedrich. The values established by Wilhelm in 1905 remain surprisingly intact. Long-term thinking over short-term profits, quality and consistency over cost-cutting. Employee welfare as a competitive advantage. These principles are not merely rhetoric. The company maintains an average employee tenure of 11.3 years, well above industry standards. Profit-sharing programs extend to hourly workers. Healthcare benefits were offered decades before they became standard practice. The family has deliberately avoided taking the company public, a decision that has cost them billions in potential liquidity, but preserved their autonomy. Friedrich IV explained the philosophy in a rare 2019 interview with an industry trade publication. My great-great-grandfather thought in decades. We think in generations. The stock market thinks in quarters. Those time scales are incompatible. Their philanthropic footprint is substantial but quiet. The Reimann Family Foundation, with an endowment exceeding $4.2 billion, focuses on education, public health, and economic development in communities where the company operates facilities. Since 1947, the foundation has distributed approximately $2.8 billion in grants. Major initiatives include scholarship programs for children of employees, funding for rural healthcare clinics, and support for small business development in economically disadvantaged areas. The family's approach to wealth reflects values established over a century ago. Modest by billionaire standards, their personal lives avoid ostentation. No private jets bear the family name. No yachts appear in Monaco. Family members live in comfortable but unremarkable homes in Cincinnati, Chicago, and a few other cities where divisions are headquartered. In an age of celebrity CEOs and founder worship, where entrepreneurs build personal brands as carefully as they build companies, the Reimann family has chosen a different path. Their invisibility is deliberate, rooted in a philosophy established by Wilhelm over a century ago and maintained across 5 generations. Privacy is not merely a preference, it is a strategic advantage. The reasons are both cultural and practical. The family traces its commitment to discretion back to Wilhelm's immigrant experience. He arrived in America with nothing, built his business through quiet competence, and distrusted the kind of attention that invited scrutiny or envy. Friedrich reinforced this approach in the 1920s, believing that public profiles created distractions and expectations that interfered with long-term decision-making. The mechanisms of invisibility are systematic. The company remains private, subject to minimal disclosure requirements. Individual brands operate autonomously, managed by professional executives who rarely mention parent company ownership in marketing materials or media interactions. The Reimann name appears nowhere on product packaging. Corporate headquarters in Cincinnati occupies an unremarkable mid-rise building with no external signage identifying it as the nerve center of a $112 billion empire. Family members maintain exceptionally low public profiles. A search for Elizabeth Hartman Chen yields fewer than 20 media mentions, despite her role overseeing one of the world's largest privately held companies. Friedrich IV has given exactly 4 interviews in his 21-year tenure as division CEO. The family does not appear on standard billionaire lists because wealth calculators struggle to assess privately held assets with opaque ownership structures. The business advantages are significant. Without quarterly earnings calls, the company can make investments that won't pay off for decades. Without activist shareholders, they can maintain employee benefits that reduce short-term profitability. Without media scrutiny, they can acquire competitors quietly and negotiate deals without public speculation inflating prices. Invisibility is not just cultural preference, it is competitive strategy. This approach stands in stark contrast to other family dynasties. The Waltons, with similar-scale retail dominance, are household names. The Mars family, also private and media-averse, still appears regularly in wealth rankings. The Koch brothers built a public profile through political engagement. The Hartmanns have avoided all of these paths, maintaining what business historians call the most successful privacy strategy in American corporate history. The story of the Reimann family is more than a tale of business success. It is a study in the power of patience, the rewards of strategic vision, and the remarkable durability of family values in an era of constant disruption. From Wilhelm's small soap workshop in 1905 to the 73 brands you encounter daily, this is a narrative about what becomes possible when entrepreneurial ambition is paired with multi-generational thinking. The arc is clear. An immigrant with $380 built a soap company. His son transformed it into a diversified conglomerate. Their descendants expanded across continents and industries. Today, 5 generations later, the family controls an empire worth over $112 billion, while maintaining the core principles established in a Cincinnati workshop over a century ago. What makes this story significant extends beyond the scale of commercial achievement. The Reimann family represents something increasingly rare in modern capitalism. They have demonstrated that long-term thinking can triumph over quarterly pressures, that private ownership can enable strategic patience impossible in public markets, and that family enterprises can maintain cohesion and values across generations, despite the forces that typically fracture dynastic wealth. Consider the entrepreneurial dimension. Wilhelm arrived in America with nothing but craft knowledge and determination. He succeeded not through innovation, but through excellence in execution and relationship building. His story mirrors millions of immigrant entrepreneurs who built American commerce through reliability, quality, and integration into their adopted communities. What distinguishes Wilhelm is not his initial success, but what his descendants did with that foundation. Friedrich's contribution was strategic vision. He saw patterns that others missed: the potential for brand diversification, the advantages of holding company structures, the value of letting acquired brands maintain their identities. These insights, implemented in the 1920s and 1930s, anticipated corporate strategies that would become standard practice only decades later. His genius was recognizing that control doesn't require visibility, that ownership can be silent while brands speak loudly. The family's continuity across 5 generations is extraordinary. Business historians note that most family enterprises fail to survive beyond the 3rd generation. Wealth dissipates, competence regresses, or conflict fractures unity. The Reimanns have avoided these pitfalls through deliberate governance structures, clear succession planning, and consistent reinvestment of values alongside capital. Each generation has absorbed the lesson that stewardship matters more than extraction, that the enterprise exists to serve future generations, not merely present consumption.